I'm Diana Skaya, and welcome to Face to Face, our weekly summary of top events, but from a Central European perspective. Now, my guest here today is TVP World Editor-in-Chief Michał Broniatowski. Michał, hello. Glad to have you back here on Face to Face.
Thank you.
Michał, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has issued quite a strong, dramatic warning at the European Parliament. Let's take a moment to listen.
Something new and dangerous is happening in our skies. In just the past 2 weeks, MiG fighters have violated Estonia's airspace, and drones have flown over critical sites in Belgium, Poland, Romania, Denmark, and Germany. These incidents are calculated to linger in the twilight of deniability. This is not random harassment. It is a coherent and escalating campaign to unsettle our citizens, test our resolve, divide our union, and weaken our support for Ukraine.
Michał, I mean, that's a lot of strong vocabulary that Ursula von der Leyen is using, calculated threats, twilight, make no mistake. What do you make out of her speech, and do you think in a way that Europe is finally waking up to this threat?
If only words could defend European skies, it would be enough. But it's not the case, I'm afraid, and I wish whole European Union was as determined as Mrs. von der Leyen is, because, it's, as we say, it's inversely proportional attention paid to the threat from Russia, inversely proportional to the distance from the border with Russia. So Poland and Baltic states are very much concerned, Germans too, but not so much countries further down.
So what is it going to take for them to understand that the threat is
I don't know.
Real?
I don't know what has to be done, but the European Union was created as a body to coordinate trade, to free jobs, to free travel, but it was not designed to defend. To produce military defense, and now it appears that it has to, not only because NATO, we don't know how it will react in the end, because its main member is not very much committed to Europe, as we know these days. So Europe must find ways of fighting back. And it's not only fighting back using missiles or tanks.
What about this drone wall? I mean, there's a lot of talk
this is what I wanted to say.
Drone wall now.
Drone wall is an idea of allowing, first of all, allowing local internal domestic defenses in the border countries to shoot down these drones, which is not obvious for everybody. For example, if Germany was attacked, Germany has a ban on any activity of their army on the domestic ground. So it's very complicated. That's why Germany apparently. Its Chancellor Merkel was not very enthusiastic about this idea, because this is not only capability of discovering these drones, but also fighting against them. So we will see what happens. For example, NATO is also trying to fight against drones, and then they are working on rules of engagement, which include shutting down these sorts of aircraft. And so probably we will end up with something, but it will not be a wall, definitely, because it will be too...
But if we take the drone wall, how realistic is it that this is something that could...
I think countries have to take care individually about it.
How many more airspace violations is it going to have to take for...
Well, hopefully not too much, but it's not immediate thing, because first of all, we don't have know-how that Ukrainians already have. We don't have war material to defend ourselves. So we have to create this capability, including radar capability to discover low-level objects in the air. And but we have to start taking care of that. We cannot shoot a drone with a missile shot by F-35.
Hence my next question, Michał, with relating to what you just said, is Europe ready to fully defend itself?
No, Europe is not ready, but Europe is luckily 3.5 years after the beginning of the Russian full-scale invasion, is at least aware that it is not ready, because 3.5 years ago Europe was not very much aware of that. Was not very fast a part of Baltic countries and Poland to help Ukraine. It took long time to Germany, for example, to understand it. But while 3.5 years ago there were no conclusions drawn from the fact that we may be not very well prepared, now I believe Europe, or at least this Europe which is close to the Ukrainian borders, Ukrainian and Russia borders, is all the time more aware that we have to build capabilities to defend ourselves.
Yeah, let me ask you this. This kind of scenario, I mean, what just happened in the past month, right? All these airspace violations, these Russian drones, overtaking European skies. Let me ask you like this. I mean, I won't play, really devil's advocate, but would Europe have ever discussed this had it not been for Russia's provocations? Would they not have said, well, we should be ready anyway for any given scenario, right? To protect our citizens, to protect our countries, to protect our one European nation.
We are maybe used to this notion that Putin is, he may be mad, but he is a very smart strategist, but he is not. Whatever he does is immediately waking up Europe. 3 years ago, his attack resulted with growth of NATO. Two very strong countries joined, Sweden and Finland. And, this time his actions did not create practically any harm, but at least they created this agility on the part of our governments in Europe. So thank you very much, Mr. Putin. This is very serious, on the other hand. We may be joking, but when he sends drones to Copenhagen airport, forcing it to close on the eve of the major meeting of European Union leaders there. He's just.
It's more than a provocation.
Yeah, it's
It's sending a message.
More than message. It's an act of war, in my opinion, but I am not a military strategist.
And speaking of Putin and his messages of act of war, but let's talk a little bit about, Michał, what I want to tackle next is a little bit about the reality of Russia that many might actually not know. We're hearing one thing, Russia portraying this image and this message of us being strong and able to, shoot our drones onto Ukraine. But I mean, what's really happening in Russia is, Michał, we're seeing long lines and we're seeing empty pumps, and Russia is in the midst of a fuel crisis. Now, gas stations, they're unable to raise certain prices because of antitrust restrictions. They're shutting down. In occupied Crimea, the price caps and limited gasoline sales are up to 20 liters per customer. For a country that prides itself, Michał, in being such an energy superpower, doesn't this look like pure humiliation for Russia?
We can see it as humiliation. I am not sure if the Russian public is very much aware of what you're saying. They know only what the Putin's television tell them. Queuing is nothing new for Russians. Gas restrictions is also nothing new for them. If anybody hopes that this will, force Putin to sit down at the peace talks table, they are wrong. The only way to defeat Mr. Putin is to defeat him on the front, in the battlefield. Yes, we get excited about Ukrainian drones attacking refineries and other energy installations in Russia. We can see
that on the map right there.
Yes,
Right?
well, if you had this circle to the left, it would mean that this Ukrainian drones can access targets even in British Islands.
Further than what they're going, right?
Well, they can attack something in Dublin. So this shows efficiency of Ukrainian army. But on the other hand, the same day when Ukrainians attack a refinery, Russians are attacking homes with their power stations and electric grid. The result is that half of the 3 million inhabitants city of Kiev is losing electricity and heating. It's already cold in Ukraine. So this is the difference. Every night in Ukraine, people are dying because of Russian bombardment. We can be happy that Ukrainian drones are so efficient, but we have to remember the difference between the two of them. Russia and Ukraine.
Do you think that this fuel crisis, though, that it's going to actually expose a deeper weakness in the Russian economy?
You don't have to expose it more, but as I said, I don't see very much chance of Russia feeling necessity of stopping this war. For Putin, this war is continuing. This war is a question of life and death. Physically, but so as
there we also
again,
John McCain once said that Russia is a gas station run by a mafia masquerading as a country.
Yes, so the only true thing now of this statement, very famous statement, is mafia. Russia and mafia.
It's like a synonym, right?
But it's no longer a gas station. It's a queue to the gas station masquerading as a country. So, jokes apart, I don't think it will force Putin to change his mind. The only way to defeat him is to make it impossible for him to continue the war effort on the battlefield.
Which is going to be how, Michał?
Giving enough weapons to Ukraine, long-distance missiles and drones and radar capabilities, not stopping intelligence, data sharing, and so on.
And speaking of giving Ukraine more military equipment, Trump this week came out as saying that he has sort of made a decision on whether to supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, and of course Putin saying that that move would actually damage U.S.-Russia relations. However, I do believe that Trump is still being quite vague here. I mean, sort of, and using that
Yes, on the one hand, Trump is very vague. So when we see these Tomahawks starting from Ukrainian soil, then we would be able to say, yes, Trump decided to send these Tomahawks to help the Ukrainian effort. On the other hand, all these threats from Putin that if you do that, we will lose our patience.
Right?
There was so many times in the beginning of this war. It was the same when the West was hesitating about sending tanks, about sending F-16s and other planes. So we shouldn't be worried about it. The only thing we should be worried that something may not be enough to defeat him.
Aside from Trump, Michał, so former German Chancellor Angela Merkel suggested her in a recent interview for a Hungarian magazine. She said that once she left office, the aggression of Putin began, basically hinting that it would have never happened, right? And she's trying to get credit for it. What do you make of her statement? I mean, is she trying to rewrite history, shift her own blame away from her own failed Russia policy?
Germany changed under the new government, under the Chancellor Merkel. Now Germany is the leader of support for Ukraine and also presenting its opinions about
quite differently than what Angela did.
You know, we say what we see rather than we say what we think we should say. And this was the case of, unluckily, we didn't realize how much the policies of international policy of Mrs. Merkel contributed to the growth of the not only Russian might but Russian conviction that they can attack its Western neighbor, because they thought Europe would not react. Luckily, Europe reacted, and Germany, after being pushed to do it. But she sounds a bit like Trump saying that if he was in power, this war would have never happened. This is the same.
No war would have happened, or in Gaza or in Ukraine, that nothing would have happened.
Everything would be okay if he were the president.
Yet he still didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, right?
He didn't. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Michał, I want to move on, and I want to ask you about the latest letter that the Polish President Karol Nawrocki addressed to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, saying that Poland is not going to take part in any EU plan to move irregular migrants to the country. That's quite a topic that came out this week here in Poland. Michał, 2 years ago, do correct me if I'm wrong, you have read all 322 pages, is that all 322 pages of the EU rules on the mandatory relocation of migrants?
Yeah, there were two.
Please, do inform us. I mean, how do you see President Nawrocki's letter to Ursula von der Leyen?
Yeah, there were two regulations concerning migration of migrants inside Europe after they had arrived on the continent. Since the very beginning, 2.5 years ago, then Polish government was complaining that it would force Poland to allow migrants into the country. That Brussels is pushing something, imposing something on us, but in one of these regulations, there is, as I remember, 29 mentions of something which they call countries under migration pressure. And this migration press was so often repeated in order to explain why the countries which are under this pressure will not be obliged to accept.
So where does Poland stand?
Poland is a country which has taken in the last few years the largest
Ukrainian refugees.
Exactly. More than 1 million people. So, of course, if Poland tells Brussels that it wants to be considered as a state under migration pressure, not only would it not have been sent some migrants here, but Poland would be eligible for additional financial support, which would be created by the countries who refuse to take migrants, and the proposed rule was that they have to pay 20,000 euro for every
That's what I wanted to ask you. Is this going to happen though, Michał? Like
I don't know what will happen, but there is this in the law there is so-called solidarity pool,
right, from
which Poland would be allowed to draw money. So what I'm aiming at, I want to say that this whole issue, as in most member countries of the European Union, this issue became a very, very high importance topic of the domestic politics.
And just very briefly, Michał, before we run out of time, and what about the response that President Nawrocki received?
He got a very kind response stating the obvious. We will take care of your concerns. The problem is that not only that there is no point in us in telling Brussels that Poland will not take, because it will not have to take them, right, but also Mr. President is not running Polish foreign policy, and him writing letters to Mrs. von der Leyen, right, the German president of the European Commission, is a bit out of place.
Thank you so much, Michał, for all your input here. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Face to Face. We'll see you next week here, and stay on with TVP World for more news, analysis, and expertise.